Hey guys, it's me, Rachel, with another question. Actually, we're going to talk about two questions. They're both having to do with COVID 19. That's the hot topic in our area right now as we're seeing a rise in cases. So, we're going to talk about what does a true exposure of COVID 19 look like? How is that defined? And if you have been exposed, what are the recommendations for quarantine? So, let's get started with what defines exposure to COVID 19. The CDC defines it as you being within 3 feet of someone for 15 minutes or more that has tested positive for COVID. They're going back a couple of days right now, but I would say probably if you've been around them in the last 5 days at least, they don't go back any further than that for contact tracing. But you could definitely think about who have you been in contact with the last 2 weeks for 15 minutes or more within 3 feet. That could be considered an exposure. So what would be an example? Let's say you find out today that your friend tested positive for COVID-19 and 2 days ago you were riding with her in the car across town for a 30-minute trip. That would be an exposure. Let's say you went into the grocery store yesterday and today you read on the news that a worker at the store tested positive. Is that an exposure? Only if you were within 3 feet of that person for 15 minutes or more. So you going into the grocery store, unless you're standing in one spot and talking to someone within 3 feet that tests positive, you are unlikely to be considered an exposure to a COVID-19 patient in that sort of a setting. It's going to be more like you were at a wedding and sat at a table with someone who tested positive for COVID-19. I've heard, visitation at a funeral has been a potential exposure where you're, sitting with people or talking with people for a prolonged period. So that is how we're defining exposure is the 15 minutes within 3 feet of someone who tests positive. Again, I think the CDC is going back 2 days before symptoms started for the sick person, but potentially we can carry the virus for up to 14 days. So that's food for thought to think about. So if you have been exposed, then what is recommended is that you are on a 14-day home quarantine. That means you stay at home for 14 days. That means you don't go to the drive-through, you don't go to the grocery store, you don't go to a ball game, and really you're supposed to be at home. And they're asking the full 14 days. Even if you decide you want to go get a COVID test, let's say you found out 5 days ago you were exposed, so you go in and get the swab and you find out, hey, I'm negative, I'm good to go. At one point we thought, yeah, you're good to go. But the health department is recommending that you stay on quarantine the full 14 days because you may test negative on the 3rd day, but it may end up being a positive test on the 10th day. You may not even get symptoms. You say, what's the big deal? Well, you may be passing it on to other people that can't handle the virus as well as you. So that's why they're asking everyone to be so careful with this quarantine. So again, to wrap it up, positive exposure, 15 minutes or more within 3 feet of somebody, and they had tested positive. Also on the home quarantine, that includes everyone in your household. So if, let's say you went on the car ride with your friend, she tests positive for COVID-19, you're now on quarantine. Well, you've probably been within 3 feet of your family members for 15 minutes or more over the last couple days. So guess what? They're also supposed to be on home quarantine. So it does affect the whole household, children included. And you'll have to get a good friend to drop some groceries at the door or do a food delivery service. So yeah, that's the story. And that's why it's kind of a big deal when people are going out and they're sick and they're spreading things, because it disrupts a lot of normal activity in life for a lot of people for 2 weeks. So there you go. That's the information. Remember, COVID information changes all the time. It seems like every hour we get new information, new recommendations, new guidelines. So that's as of today, June 30th, 2020 in Southwest Missouri. Those are our recommendations. If you have a question, please comment below or send me an email at askrachelthepa@gmail.com, and Rachel spelled Rachael. Thanks, appreciate you guys.